haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him what a problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
50 Cent takes some responsibility for Lloyd Banks and Tony Ayo.
What responsibility? Like a parent?
You're the leader.
What responsibility am I taking for him? Like, explain to me.
That you didn't encourage them to be independent
Nah,
sooner.
that's not true.
Lloyd Banks is now addressing the truth about what really happened between him and 50 Cent, and this time, he's not holding back. In addition to being arrogant and revealing half-truths, he's blaming the 1950s for rewriting their history. G-Unit was one of the most powerful hip-hop movements when it initially appeared. 50 was the face, but Banks was the driving force behind the lyrics. G-Unit had a lot of game weight because of his voice, bars, and delivery. They seemed to move like brothers at least. But as celebrity took control, things started to shift. 50 began publicly criticizing Banks, saying that he wasn't desirous enough and that he was lazy. He even pulled Banks into his book, giving the impression that he had given up on himself. At the time, Banks said nothing. He just kept his head down, avoiding hidden criticism, Twitter feuds, and interviews. But now, he's had enough of being silent. In an interview recently, Banks talked openly about everything. According to him, labeling someone lazy is not only wrong but also blatantly disrespectful. What hurts the most about it, 50 wasn't even there when things became hard, according to Banks. 50 wasn't there to support him throughout his darkest moments. He also says that even though 50 thought Banks had fallen off, he never stopped working. He just didn't do it the way 50 wanted him to on his own terms. He continued to be dedicated to life, music, and self-improvement, and after years of silence, he's finally making amends. But 50 moves, and he didn't take it lightly. As soon as Banks ended that interview, 50 came back with his own shade. Their friendship seems to have become meaningless. There is disagreement among supporters. Some think 50 contributed to the brand's establishment, while others think he has been abusing his day ones. What truly became of that G-Unit loyalty is a topic that now needs to be addressed. Was 50 always telling the truth, or had he been lying to Banks for years to protect his reputation? Is the decision final, or may it be changed? And from here, where do they even go? Kindly provide your thoughts in the space provided for comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next in-depth analysis. You already know.
The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time.
For a long time, Lloyd Banks remained silent regarding the real nature of his relationship with 50 Cent. However, 50 abruptly made a random swipe at him, breaking the stillness. Finally, Lloyd decided to take a position and correct the record. It all started when 50 uploaded a behind-the-scenes video from his tour on Instagram, in which he casually addressed Lloyd and Young Buck, but the tone very suspicious. That he appeared to be mocking Lloyd for not being as famous as he had planned did not sit well with fans or Lloyd himself. And Lloyd differs from 50 precisely because of that. The shady interviews and social media posts that 50 Cent enjoys have never truly been used by Lloyd's. He has thus far been kept to himself, and stayed off the internet. When Lloyd was eventually questioned about his relationship with 50, in a rare interview, he didn't mince words. He addressed the long-standing accusation that he was lazy, as well as the rumors and disrespect. It was evident that this was more than just music, it was personal. Lloyd clarified that although 50 was accusing him of lacking motivation, he was actually coping with a difficult situation, the loss of his father. He claimed that rather than receiving assistance from someone he believed to be family, he was attacked because he was experiencing real-life sorrow, not just once, but repeatedly. 50 made it a common joke in books, interviews, and even memes.
So, Banks' temperament was definitely a little crazy. I'm not saying anything here that I haven't said to Banks directly. Another time I sat down with him, just when IG was starting to pop off, and tried to drop this gem on him. You gotta get on Instagram, I encouraged him. You can be a little awkward in person, so this is actually a better way for you to communicate with people. Nah, I don't want to do it, he said. Why not? You can literally put punchlines under your pictures, make some new fans. Nah, that's corny, he told me. When Banks made that comment to me, I realized he had gone as far as he can go. In fact, my exact thought was, this is someone I can't invest another minute or dollar in.
Furthermore, 50 didn't hold back on the remainder, even though he did give Lloyd some credit by referring to him as a good lyricist. He asserted that Lloyd lacked the innate charm and motivation necessary to truly be a celebrity.
He's a very good lyricist. Among what are known as the punchline rappers who will end their bars with a funny or tongue-in-cheek line, Banks like to call himself the PLK, or Punchline King. I don't know if he's the king, but I'll give it to him that he's in the conversation. He is not, however, a great live performer, stylish dresser, or a domineering personality. So if he doesn't check those three boxes, how is he going to get bigger and become the star in real life he is in his head?
Banks, however, claims that 50 was never really there for him, particularly not in the difficult times when help would have been most needed, and that betrayal was more painful for Banks than any diss track. Additionally, he denied that he fell off. As part of his Course of the Inevitable series, he has released 3 full-length albums in secret since 2021. There was only unadulterated lyricism, consistency, and an obvious love for the art form. No big label campaigns or memorable radio songs. You see, Banks just quit playing the game of the industry, but he never stopped rhyming. The rift between him and 50 actually began there. Banks was never ostentatious, never sought attention, and most surely had no intention of being viral. He's a rapper's rapper, meaning that he prioritizes bars over buzz. That type of energy isn't effective. You're a liability if you're not contributing to the empire's growth. Banks, too? He no longer aimed to be a foot soldier. You must keep in mind their origins to realize how profound this is. In South Jamaica, Queens, Banks, 50, Antonio all grew up together. These friendships weren't formed by the industry. These were children from the same block who were using music as an escape from the conflict. He took his crew with him when Get Rich or Die Trying in the 1950s went off. G-Unit evolved into a movement rather than just a rap group, and Banks was unique when it came to bars. Banks added that icy delivery and complex wordplay. But 50 had the charisma and hooks. That was immediately apparent to fans. His early reputation was solidified by his mixtapes, Money in the Bank and Cold Corner. The hunger for more followed in 2004 within a month, platinum. Hits include On Fire, Karma, and I'm So Fly. G-Unit appeared to be an unstoppable force at that precise moment. Yo played his role. Banks established himself as a major lyricist. 50 dominated the charts, and later Young Buck and Game added even more vigor. Video games, footwear, merchandise, and music all featured G-Unit. However, the tension increased along with the wealth and notoriety. Game went rogue, Buck was fired, and the close-knit atmosphere among the crew members began to fade. At that point, Banks started taking even more money out. Although he was never loud or confrontational in the first place, supporters began to question whether he still cared. When he began to skip press appearances and ghost events. However, the story was different behind the scenes. Banks was in pain, not being sluggish in books, memes, and interviews. Losing his father demotivated him. The humiliation in public never stopped. Additionally, 50 repeatedly reiterated the same demeaning story despite his claims that he did everything in his power to support Banks' growth. He claimed that Banks lacked the drive, failed to adapt to the circumstances, and lacked business acumen. Perhaps, though, Banks didn't want to change into someone he wasn't. He just wanted to rap. He wasn't attempting to establish himself as a brand. And that's precisely why some of his admirers continue to ride for him today. Because Banks remained loyal to himself in a world full of gimmicks and cloud chasers. He may have lost some commercial luster as a result, but he gained respect in a different way.
I haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him what the problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club,
No, he goes though.
but you don't go.
No, I don't see me there. We went to Atlantic City. We was in it was a showcase. They expect a show to happen tonight. Yeah, we will see you at the show tonight. And I go, oh, they expecting a show. Like, I was like, yo, call all of them, tell them to come here. When I asked Banks, like, when you go to perform your shows, you don't do this song? This is the hardest record on your album. And he's like, why? Cause you want it? I looked at it and I was like, trying to understand where he was coming from. He had been on my last record. He's like, I ain't been on your record, this and that. And I was like, so what? You don't have to be on none of my records. Like, me being on your records is the favor. I put you on a record with Eminem on my first album, fool. Don't nobody even know you. We were anticipating success, not as much success as we actually had. And it would have been sufficient if we had half the success.
In one interview, 50 asserted that Banks lacked the drive to match his talent. He even said that his lack of desire to use social media was detrimental to his marketability and visibility. However, Banks didn't use silence as a tactic, it's just who he is. He has never wanted to play the industry game, has always been private, and is more interested in bars and brands. That made him genuine in the eyes of his core supporters. However, at 50, That made him a risk someone who wouldn't contribute to the empire's growth. In the manner he had in mind after that, he truly let go in the 1950s book Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. He gave names in addition to speaking in generic terms. He specifically called out Banks and Yeo, saying they were unwilling to adapt to the times and were mentally trapped in the early 2000s. 50 claimed that Banks was too old-fashioned, too comfy in his lane, and too averse to change. He portrayed him as having a lot of promise, but never realizing it. Banks wasn't hungry enough, he said. He thought he was a rapper who had the potential to be very popular but stayed under the radar. And that was the biggest disappointment in 50's opinion.
Banks was around 14 years old when Biggie and Pac were both popping, so that makes sense that they still resonate with him so deeply. I can relate. I still love the music from when I was that age too. The difference is I haven't patterned my career after KRS-One and Coogee Rap. What would be the point of that? They were both incredible in their moment, but I've always been concerned about creating my own moment rather than copying theirs. Years ago, I told Banks to film a video of his life and post it on YouTube. Introduce people to his lifestyle. Let the camera follow him around for a while and see how he moves. Maybe something he says or does will create a spark, go viral, and then he'll have some heat around him again. What I didn't want him to do was sit there writing punchline after punchline and then grow resentful when no one seemed to care about his mixtapes anymore. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Before adding Biggie and Pac didn't do that. They're dead, my man, I told him. They died before this stuff was even invented. And how do you know they wouldn't be posting on IG if they were alive? It was a line of thinking that really blew my mind. It suggested that if Tupac was alive, he'd still be wearing leather vests and red bandanas tied around his head, sending girls his beeper number. Or that Biggie would still be wearing Gucci sweaters and playing Mortal Kombat 2 every night. In Banks' case, a lot of his failure to grow as an artist is connected to his emotional composition. Banks grew up in the same neighborhood as me, but was never a part of it in the same way. I actually hustled with his father. Banks was more content staying on his porch and watching the world from there. There's nothing wrong with that, but it underscored a particular aspect of his personality. Banks wanted things to come to him, as opposed to going out and getting them for himself. That's not me trying to assassinate his character. The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time. The kind of person most comfortable being a big fish in a small pond. If Banks was hanging out in the studio with a bunch of unknown MCs, he'd be very confident. He'd enjoy being the center of attention. But if I suddenly showed up, he'd feel like he got demoted. He'd be bitter. He didn't feel like the center of attention anymore. I get it. I can take up a lot of the air in the room. The problem is that he'd never fight to get some of that oxygen back, which is exactly what a star is supposed to do. I believe a true star must possess 4 fundamental abilities: create great material, be a high-energy live performer, have a unique appearance, and possess a strong personality. Tupac had all 4. So does Mary J. Blige. Chris Brown, too. If I'm being honest in evaluating Banks, he possesses maybe one of those qualities.
He openly put that much distance between himself and Banks for the first time. With this book, it was obvious that 50 was drawing a line, claiming that Banks lacked the skills necessary to advance the business. And it was no longer just light-hearted barbs or fun sarcasm. Fans also think that Banks answered through music despite the fact that he remained silent in interviews. Many others noticed lyrics in his song Stranger Things that seemed to explicitly address the tension with 50, demonstrating that he understood what was being said and how it felt coming from someone he once thought of as a brother. This is a point at which Lloyd's and 50's viewpoints diverge greatly. For 50, success is loud, significant, worldwide, and quantifiable in terms of money and impact. However, Banks has discovered tranquility on a more sedate road. Success, in his opinion, is about being able to support your family while remaining loyal to yourself and doing what you love on your own terms. Furthermore, Banks acknowledges that he occasionally lacked motivation. He also acknowledged in interviews that he heard 50's comments and could relate to their points of view, and he even got a lazy tattoo. However, in his view, admitting your shortcomings and opting for serenity over fame does not make you a failure. Rather, it makes you human.
But when we came to the actual room, we talked about, I think I irritated him earlier, playing with the entourage. With MO and them, like, cause I look.
Banks, is that true?
Therefore, Lloyd isn't afraid to acknowledge that he's a more relaxed kind of person. However, he does not consider that to be the same as being lazy. Simply put, he has never been drawn to the drama and power chasing that frequently accompany being in the public eye without any additional noise. He wants to make music, release it according to his own terms, and let it speak for itself. However, from the perspective of the 1950s, that strategy appeared to be lacking motivation or appetite, and a lot of the animosity between them really began to develop at that point. Additionally, there is the element of loyalty. Loyalty is everything to the 50s, if that's one thing they've always talked about. He even stated in his book that he would prefer to be held at gunpoint than to have a close friend or family member betray him. Therefore, 50 perceives it as a personal betrayal when members of his network, particularly those he helped elevate, begin to change or distance themselves. And when he feels that way, he doesn't hold back. He breaks up relationships and tells everyone wide up.
I'd rather be robbed at gunpoint than be betrayed. Not that I suggest you try it. At least getting robbed is exciting. There's an undeniable rush when somebody pulls out their piece and growls, "Get on the fucking floor." Once it's over, provided you don't get shot, you can go tell your friends, "Yo, they just stuck me up." Your pockets might be lighter, but you'll be much stronger overall, having survived the experience. Getting betrayed is different. You don't get a great war story out of it. I've never heard anyone get hyped telling their friends, "Yo, you won't believe this, but I just got backstabbed by my mans." There are no stripes earned for that shit. When you open yourself up to someone, either financially or emotionally, and they go left on you, it's a different kind of pain. Even more dramatic than a stick-up kid physically taking something from you. Like Malcolm X said, to me, the thing that is worse than death is betrayal. You see, I can conceive death, but I could not conceive betrayal.
According to 50's explanation, he genuinely feels that he gives his best to the individuals he surrounds himself with. He is the kind to invest in you, ride for you, promote you, and even take chances on your behalf. Therefore, it's worse than death when those same people change, retreat, or act in a way that seems to betray him. It's personal as well as business, and there's no turning back if he feels deceived.
Because I find betrayal so painful, I put incredible thought and consideration into the people who surround me. As I detailed in this chapter, when I was first coming up, I made a mistake of confusing loyalty and location. It's a miscalculation a lot of people make. One, to believe that just because someone is from the same streets as you, that they're gonna have your back forever. I learned the hard way that that's not the case. I think everyone's a little afraid of being too trustful, but I'm definitely worse than most. In my life, I feel like I've been betrayed by people I deserve better from. People I've given money to, opportunities to, love to, even life to. Because of that, for a long time, the only thing I had faith in was money. I only trusted the paper that says, "In God we trust." This is one of the reasons the theme of betrayal is so prominent in my show Power. It's an issue that's always on my mind, so much so that I even called the last season The Final Betrayal.
Thus, Lloyd Banks is not the only issue. 50 Cent has stated unequivocally that he values loyalty, regardless of the person. He has separated himself from those he believed were not in agreement throughout the years, including his own son, Marquise. 50 thought that there was no loyalty once their relationship ended. He made the decision to move on rather than publicly attempt to make amends. For 50, loyalty and trust are crucial, and he finds it difficult to view the relationship in the same light once those things are lost.
You know, actually, your son wants to sit down with you.
No, he doesn't. See, Charlamagne, you would call me. You don't call TMZ to say you want to sit down. Think about it, man. You know, you want some attention. And it's okay, you can have as much of that as you want. You know, it's just like he's been trained to believe what you see him say in that interview, that what he was saying, he's been trained to believe that for a long time, bro. Like, you don't just wake up and say, "Oh, well, I don't believe what I've been believing forever."
But never be open to it?
No, I don't think the relationship works. Look, for a long time, Coleman, I went running behind him. I went places that he went, and he left the place.
It follows that even his closest friends may not be safe. If 50 is prepared to cut off contact with his own kid due to what he perceives to be treachery. Another original member of the G Unit, Tony Yeo, was regarded as one of the most devoted members of the 50. Yeo supported him through everything for years. He wasn't untouchable, though. 50 didn't hold back when rumors of treason began to circulate, whether or not they were true. He openly called Yeo out, demonstrating that in his society, there are repercussions for any indication of change.
Yo, if you don't do it, like if I don't give him something that he wanted murder, then he's gonna go back to doing what we did. You remember saying that to me? You don't remember saying that? Yeah, tell him, you be telling Vlad all kind of I don't want to get into all that.
Yeah. Look better than Vlad. You think you tell me the thing?
Yeah.
Nice.
They don't even look like the same dude to me
Nice
on
for them
Vlad.
stories.
The real shit coming out.
And young Buck comes next. Buck was a key figure in G-Unit's ascent in the early 2000s. The ensemble was able to reach a wider audience because of his enthusiasm, style, and Southern influence. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse as soon as 50 Cent felt that Buck was being disloyal. Not content to silently separate himself, 50 publicly and dramatically expelled Buck from the organization. Songs, phone call leaks, and internet teasing ensued, demonstrating that once 50 feels deceived, there's no turning back.
But I think that's over. I think that's done. But
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, his temperament, he won't actually get himself. Like, right now he's in jail, but knowing who he is from the entire time that he's been around, I don't think he has what it takes to recover from, you know, like, it takes discipline at that point. Because it's when people begin to want to give you resistance. Hip-hop culture is out with the old and with the new.
And the same thing happened to The Game, who was previously one of G-Unit's biggest talents. One of the most talked about feuds in hip-hop history, 50 and Game's parting was ugly. As we all recall, that was it for 50 when he saw the picture of Lloyd Banks and The Game together years later. It was a betrayal to him. 50 responded with some mysterious shade in an Instagram post that has since been removed. What do you see when you look at this picture? He wrote, "Confusion, I see. I don't know if I'm the only one. I'm something of a cancer. Avoid growing old with me. Although I don't ask for difficulties. I don't mind them at all. I am unique. The question is not how I feel about it, but how does Lloyd Banks feel about it?" He concluded it's just better to let some shit alone. Do you believe that Banks and 50 will ever get back together now that he has finally had his say? Or have the years caused too much harm? Please share your ideas in the comments section below. And for more, watch this next video right here. Remain alert and focused.